studying for the LSAT for probably about a month or so now. I've done pretty much only one full practice test. I took the one that they have for free on the LSAT website, and then I just got this book of like 10 practice ones I just got, and I've done just one of the logic game sections in one of them. So that's pretty much the only practice tests I've taken, and I've done some of the free stuff that you have on your website. So
fantastic, great. So it looks like you're getting into it. Any
Yeah.
particular challenges you're facing? Anything you're looking for support on?
Okay, so the logical reasoning section is the easiest by far, in my opinion. I find that one to be pretty easy. The logic game section is funny because the first practice test that I took, I did not do very well. I didn't think it was difficult. I thought that it was difficult to do in 35 minutes, if that makes sense. And then the logic games on your website were pretty much the same thing. They don't seem challenging, but they took a long time to do. But I just did a logic game section the other day in this book, and I got a 22 out of 23. So, but it was the same thing where I was having a problem with speed, right? So the first 3 logic games that I did, I breezed through them. Like took about 16, 17 minutes to do the first 3. And then the last one took like 16 minutes, So how do I get faster with that?
Yeah, well, first off, kudos to you on just how well you're doing already. I mean, accuracy is a struggle alone. And the fact that accuracy isn't the biggest issue, but maybe pacing is an issue. You're already one step ahead of many other people. So that's fantastic. You've clearly got some aptitude for this, but time constraints are incredibly important.
Right.
The exam is strictly timed, and it's meant to be so that most people cannot reasonably finish the questions in the time allotted. So it comes down to efficiency. A couple of ways to get more efficient at logic games. One is making more inferences up front.
Okay.
And the other is maximizing use of previous work. So previous hypothetical valid scenarios that you draw over the course of the game, all of those can potentially help you answer future questions.
Okay, so for like inferences, you mean take the rules that they give me and then see if I can create other rules out of them? Like that?
Yeah,
kind of
so
thing?
like deductions. So
Right.
you might combine multiple rules together to
Right.
make a deduction. So that's often happens, for example, when you have the same variable featured in multiple rules, you might be able to link those rules together in some way.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
So it's about slowing down and taking the moment to pause
Right.
before you jump into the questions.
Right. So if I take more time, because more or less what the strategy has ended up being for the most part is I'll write out the rules, maybe do like a small diagram, nothing major, and then I'll do a lot of just very quick elimination going through the answer choices, which works for the easier ones, like the first 2 or the first 3 that they give me. And then by the time I get to the 4th or sometimes the 3rd, it depends. That strategy will take a long time and won't really work out so well. So I think that would help. I'll definitely try that. I made a note of that. And then the other one that you said was maximize use of previous work. I think I'm already doing that for the most part. If I have something that I've seen in a previous question, or sometimes I'll skip a question and go to one, and then the work from the later one will help with the previous one. So I think that should help too. So
fantastic. Yes, so you're already maximizing use of previous work. That's great. So now it's just okay, taking those moments to pause before jumping in.
Okay. And then beyond logic games, when it comes to like my actual just study structure, so I'm planning on taking it in June, right? So that's a couple months away. How much time per week and how many days per week is the best to prepare to study for it?
There's no one best for everybody. We have to figure out what's best for you. So what other obligations do you have?
What other what?
Obligations.
Oh, obligations. I thought you said applications. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Pretty much just my coursework and 1 or 2 clubs. We'll see whether that's a 1 or 2. But generally speaking, I definitely have a lot. I have some days where I'll be up till like midnight doing homework, and I can tell you that's going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. But every other day, for the most part, I'll have at least 4 free hours of time. So does it make sense to be studying like 20 hours a week? Is that too much? Is that not, oh, I assume 20 hours wouldn't be not enough, but is it too much to try to do like 2 hours a day for 5 days in a week? Is it, and beyond, how should I be studying? Like, what's the most efficient way to do it?
Yeah, great questions, big questions. We could definitely get into them a bit. So, 2 hours a day for 5 days, on the face of it, doesn't seem unreasonable given what you've laid out. Depends in part on how taxing your schoolwork is. Some weeks that might be totally fine. If it's midterms week or finals week, or you have a big paper due, that could change things a little bit. So acknowledge that there will be busier periods where you can't do as much LSAT. There will be slower periods where you would be able to do more LSAT, but the pull of things like clubs, for example, could maybe seem more exciting and pull you away from it a bit. So just be prepared for that possibility.
Okay. And when it comes to like the most efficient way to study, so like I have this book of practice tests. It doesn't seem to me that the best is I could just sit down and just take a practice test every day, and then in 10 days I'd be out of practice tests. I mean, maybe I could go buy more, but there's only so many out there. Outside of like practice tests, what can I do to improve at like logical reasoning and the reading comprehension section? Because the logic games, you pretty much don't have many other options other than the logic games that they give you. But what other ways outside of just the practice stuff can I use?
That's a great question. So I'm glad you brought this up because there are a lot of exams out there. There are nearly 100 released LSAT practice tests. So you could hypothetically, we're speaking now in mid to late February, you've got 3 months and change till the June LSAT Flex. You could take a practice test nearly every day.
So are the older
You
are the
could.
older okay, but are the older practice or the older LSAT tests, are they're not like different than like the newer ones, or they're not is do they resemble the current test to the same degree that the more recent ones do? I mean, I haven't looked at ones that are from like 2000 from sorry 1991 or something.
Right. Yeah. So that is when the current format began, June 1991. The exam has evolved over time, but those exams are all going to have 4 logic games. They'll have 4 sections. They'll have logical reasoning. They'll have the reading comp. So they're still perfectly valid practice material, but the exam has changed over time in small, subtle ways. And then a couple of more significant changes like dual passages and reading comp beginning in June 2007. But it's all valuable. It's all valuable. But you shouldn't necessarily try to work through all of that material over the next 3 months and change. Hypothetically, maybe you could if you had nothing else to do, but that wouldn't be the most valuable use of your time. It's not simply about taking practice tests. It's also about learning from your mistakes and analyzing what went wrong, what could have gone better.
Okay, that makes sense. And just you said LSAT Flex, like what is that?
Yeah.
Like
So
what is
basically, the LSAT used to be paper and pencil. Then it was briefly on a tablet. They called it the digital LSAT. Then with COVID, they moved the LSAT online. And so it's been a 3-section online LSAT. They're calling the LSAT Flex. The June LSAT is going to be the last time that 3-section LSAT Flex is offered online. Starting in August, it'll still be online and probably forever, but we'll see. But they're going to add in a 4th unscored experimental section that you won't know which one it is. That begins in August. And so if you take it in June and you're happy with your June result, you could be good and the stuff happening later won't affect you. Alternatively, you may hypothetically want to postpone the LSAT or retake it in August, in which case you would have a 4th section as well. That would be any of logic games, logical reasoning, reading comp. It would be unscored and you wouldn't know which one it was during the exam. But either way, I would say you could do some work in the book, but you're better off getting Law Hub from LSAC so that you can get the exams in that online format.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's the exam itself is pretty much the same thing.
Same content. Yeah. So same content, same difficulty level. The logic games, logical reasoning, reading comp are all going to be there.
Okay, so then that's not really anything to worry about. Okay, was there anything else that I had? Like big picture stuff? Because logical reasoning is easy. Reading comprehension, I don't know that the reading comprehension is necessarily difficult. It's I think the most difficult of the three in terms of just the content itself. Like I said, the logic games, I think if I had unlimited time, I would get every question right and I wouldn't even blink. Logical reasoning is pretty similar, except the time's not really an issue. Reading comprehension is the one that I have more problems with, like content, you know? So what's the best way to kind of get better at that? I know this is all big picture stuff, but I haven't been doing this for that long, you know, and I haven't really dived into your course that much yet. So
No, it's fine. These are great questions. And I'm glad you're asking them now because that will affect how you study going forward for the next 3 months and change. So I would say, based on what you said earlier about taking the 10 exams and then maybe getting more, it sounds like a default approach could be taking practice tests, scoring yourself, then moving on to the next. And that's a default approach a lot of students have. And so I might suggest that you spend more time on the review process, that post-game analysis to figure out what happened, what could have gone differently, but also just thoroughly analyze the problems themselves and how you approach them. And so that could be for a difficult reading comprehension passage. What did it mean, first off? And then what gave you trouble about the passage? What topics don't you like? You might want to seek out more passages involving those topics. You might want to do some light reading on the side related to those topics. Then you also want to analyze the questions too, and specifically which questions are giving you trouble and what about them is giving you trouble, if it's the question stem or if it's tempting wrong answer or unappealing right answer. And I have plenty of videos in the course from previous live classes where I walk through this review process. It's the Socratic review method, by the
way. Right. That makes sense. So just I take a test and then I look at, okay, what did I get? And not just the ones that I got wrong, but the ones that I guessed and got right.
Yes.
That's a pretty major thing too. Because, you know, there's times when it's just, well, I don't know, but there's these two. I'm just going to pick one. And then, hey, I go back and it turns out that one was right. It doesn't help if I don't actually, you know, figure that out. But okay, that makes sense. That seems like a good idea. So, okay, I think in terms of like big picture stuff, that was pretty much it. And I think it's 1:40. So, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, it was great meeting with you, Mitchell. Of course, yeah. Keep in touch, and I'll hope to see you in class soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.